Welcome back to October's deep dive. So, this is where Ty and I look back at last month's feature, introduce you to this month's incredible guest, and dive into a topic that gets to the heart of the journey behind the brand. Before we jump in, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay connected because here we share it all, the highs, the lows, and everything in between. To start us off, I'm Starah Dixon, founder of Mitsu's, your destination for statement decor that blends luxury with everyday living. We offer curated, artisan crafted pieces for those who don't just follow trends, they set them. Pieces that make your home feel powerful, personal, and anything but ordinary. And my dear co host,
Hi everyone, my name's Ty. I am the founder and CEO of Luxury Travels by Dreamy Designer Events, where we curate elevated travel experiences worldwide and help people step away from the noise of AI and technology to rediscover the power of human connection, explore the world, and prioritize wellness and mental health. So, before we dive into today's Founders Deep Dive, I want to take a moment to reflect on our September spotlight with Katya. If you missed it, you definitely want to catch it. She's the founder of Daniela Conti Foundation. Katya shared such a powerful story of turning unimaginable pain into purpose, building a legacy of hope and impact in such a community that a lot of times either goes unnoticed or goes unseen. If you missed her future, trust me, it's one you want to go back to watch. The replay is available and be sure to check it out. So I'll pass it over to Star to kind of shine a light on our this month's feature.
alrighty, so last week on Authentic Ambitions, our spotlight shined on Alana Greenidge, founder of Lana's Bakeology. What started as a love for cooking grew into a deep passion for baking, her true creative outlet. Through her business, Alana brings personality, artistry, and sweetness to every recipe, reminding us all her signature phrase, "Did you have your sweets yet?" If you missed it, you can still go back and watch the spotlight from Sunday, October 12th. Her story is one you definitely don't want to miss.
Definitely don't. Definitely is in so many sites to kind of truly see someone who had a passion and turned that truly into something that it's work, but they don't necessarily regret it because it's something that keeps them going day in and day out. And also to kind of get a little bit of an authentic look into someone who started their business and got into areas where they weren't 100% comfortable, but they knew they had to progress in terms to get the growth that they wanted. So, with that being said, now it's time for this month's Founders Deep Dive. Our theme this month is one that every founder can relate to. It's comfort zones don't build legacies.
Mhm.
And here's the truth. Growth doesn't happen in the safe and familiar. It happens when we stretch, when we say yes before we feel ready, when we allow ourselves to step into the uncomfortable. We we kind of get to the point where us as leaders, sometimes we're used to the same thing day in and day out. And when there's something new, sometimes not everyone always gravitates to it, but that's what growth is. That's what growth is when you have something that you're not necessarily sure about, or you kind of get those butterflies in your stomach, then you know it's something that's pushing you outside your comfort zone, which only leads to endless possibilities. So today, Star and I are opening up in our honest conversation about what it really looks like to get uncomfortable in business, in leadership, and in life, and how those moments of stretch often lead to our biggest breakthroughs. So we're going to talk about it. And with that note, just to kind of go into a few insights, and you'll see this if you've been following not only our journey, but also the journeys of a lot of our spotlights and people that we've been talking to. This is a very, very important part. And it's because sometimes a lot of people are used to what they're familiar with. And once you're used to that, you're like, okay, this is what I know. The moment when someone talks about something you've never done before or something that can technically expand your visibility, you either shy away from it or you say yes and then you never follow up about it. You kind of like let it, go to the side. And that could be your biggest opportunity. And it's one of those things where making sure you know for yourself what goals do you have, what kind of future you want to live, what kind of future do you want to leave behind. And sometimes getting outside your comfort zone also opens it up to other people who were struggling with the same possibilities, but they only know, like, okay, this is unfamiliar territory. I'm not used to this. And I want something that I know. And you knowing something is great. But sometimes if you want to expand and if you want to reach visibility, expand your story, your brand, sometimes you need that extra little step to break through so you can get to what's on the other side of that wall.
You 100%. I feel like one of the things nowadays that is like pretty scary for a lot of people is definitely growing in public and just like letting people see your progress as you're, like building out your brand or getting from point A to point B. But it is within those moments that like being uncomfortable should like at least give you confidence to become more comfortable. One of the things that I feel like it hurts a lot, especially when you're starting out your business, but like it really does help you out, is hearing a lot of no's. And I feel like we graze on it whenever we're like we succeed at whatever we're trying to accomplish, but at the same time I really do want to sit in that little vein for a second, because a lot of the times whenever you hear a no, I view it as a way for you to reshape how you're like, trying to connect with a person or connect, whether that be a client or a customer. So like a few no's might help you actually go, along the way.
Honestly, what you said is actually pretty accurate.
Okay.
So, and I'm going to say two things with that. So, yes, in terms of getting outside your comfort zone with hearing no, because when it comes to discomfort, there's a few different parts of it. The one I do like, the one that you touched on, which is when you hear no, especially, it really does kind of give you kind of like a leeway to refocus on what you're
Hmm.
doing or shifting it. But I say there's two parts to that. And I say that because for the one, just like how you said, when you hear no, it's really okay. It's not necessarily a no for you to try and take perfect that personal. It's more so a no to be like, okay, either one, maybe that person's just not your clientele or just not the
Right.
person that aligns with your vision, or two, it could just be that maybe there's something that you have to tweak a little bit so that it could that you can offer it, and something that's missing that you may not even know, but you know it because you get that feedback from somebody because they said no. And no all doesn't mean that what you have isn't good. It just means that it's either not the right time, not the right
Hmm.
person, or you just have to adjust your strategy. Now, I said that there's two things for the no that you touched on, because when you're like when I say starter up, I mean like kind of like just into the business, trying to start your growth and trying to get your stuff off of the ground. No comes off a completely different vibe. When you hear no, you
Hmm.
almost kind of get defeated. You kind of like
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
like you kind of feel like, okay, what I have, nobody wants it. It's not good enough. You take it real personal. Like, it takes a little bit of growth in within your business for it not to, not to kind of feel so like, okay, wow, like after I hear a couple or a few no's, maybe I'm not on the right path. Maybe I like it,
Mhm.
but no one else does. And so when you're starting your business, that's why it's good. And we talked about this before, is having community and having support, because sometimes that thing is something that you naturally don't see. That you don't see people saying, oh yeah, it's okay. If you get a lot of time, 9 times out of 10, you're gonna get the no's before you get to the yes. The problem is
Mhm.
you got to try to make sure you don't either quit or you try to short yourself because you feel like, okay, well, maybe this is the reason why they're saying no. It's this. It just may be that wasn't the right time. But when you're starting off, you're already nervous as it is, because either you're not used to the talking to people game. You're not used to trying to
Mhm.
tell people what you're good at and how it can benefit them, and it coming clear off to them. And also, you're not good. Sometimes you're just not naturally just already like, oh, let me be a speaker about what I'm good at. So
Mhm.
when you hear no in the beginning, it's like, okay, I was already kind of nervous. Then I started hearing no. Maybe let me go back to make it a little bit more perfect. And then over time, that's all time that's wasted trying to perfect something that probably was really good in the beginning. It's just that you didn't hit the person or the clientele you were looking for.
Yeah, and heavy on like not hitting the clientele that you're looking for. And also, I do find that a lot of the times it is a good opportunity for you to just get reviews or feedback because, like, those are the moments where it's kind of like, okay, no, would you like to elaborate? Like you want to do it in a way where it's not feeling like very combative, even though, and even if your feelings are getting hurt, but like enough for you to at least get a little direction as to why this is not the thing that they want to go with. Also, like it's interesting too because well, it's not interesting, but this is really, as you touched on, the point where people usually fall off on their entrepreneurship journey. And without realizing that like you really do have to like stick it out like through the storm and adjust where need be so that you can actually make your business the way that you want it to be and so that you can actually succeed too because if you got it like easily as soon as you were trying to go from ideation all the way into actuality, the thing is that you're going to start growing, but now you don't know what to do in case of emergency. And that's a big issue. And I even feel too that like imposter syndrome is one of those things that gets all of us at like different times
Hmm.
because of the fact that you're kind of like, am I even qualified to even be either selling this thing or speaking about like this topic or, like whatever the case may be. But it really is just in being on the I was gonna say give an F, but like I don't care, like the part of like the journey for you to actually just be like, you know what, like whatever happens, happens.
Yes.
My only goal is just to make the next dollar like for my business, but also adjust along the way wherever I need be.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think especially also with like the imposter syndrome and like just that in general, because a lot of times the discomfort in it being being scared, is the
Mm-hmm.
fear of it. It's like the feeling that you get nervous, and it's a lot easier to put something off and say, okay, I'm just not going to do it, or I'll wait a couple years, or I'll wait until it's perfect, or I'll wait until I think that it's ready. Just because you're nervous and you're scared, it's like the
Mm-hmm.
same way as someone saying, oh, okay, yeah, I think you should do this because it'll be great. And then you're like, oh, your eyes get big, your stomach starts turning, and then you're like, you're like, are you talking to me? So it's like, and it's one of those things where it's a natural reaction, but
Yes.
9 times out of 10, anytime when you're pushing through that and when you have nerves and when you have scare, that just means you care. That means that you care about what you're doing. And that just means you're pushing yourself because you want to achieve bigger things. You want to build a legacy. You want to build a future. You have all these things that you're aiming for. And this is what's going to do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want, and this is not the time to try to dim your light or to try to like, look away from it. And this is also sometimes when you start seeking in terms of like, whether you're have your own support system, have your own
Yep.
community or someone, because that's what helps you during those times. Because sometimes you're like, I want to do this, I just don't know if I'm ready. And sometimes you're ready, it's just the scared and the fear behind it that really prevents you from really excelling and elevating your brand to where it can achieve, just because you feel like you're not ready, where technically you're like already 1,000%. It's just
Mm-hmm.
you talking yourself out of it because you don't think you're ready.
100. Well, especially when you're looking at things that you're not familiar to doing. And especially as like founders, really first time founders, you're nervous about how you're going to be perceived because you also do understand that we're living inside of like an age where at times it feels like you cannot make a mistake. Like God forbid, like you say the
You
wrong
make a
thing at
mistake,
the
it
wrong time.
is it, everybody. No one sees when it's perfect, but when you make
Yeah,
a mistake, everybody sees when it's a
everyone,
mistake.
yeah.
Like
All of a sudden it's a call
I've
out.
I've been great for like months. I make one mistake and it's like
Yeah. But I feel like a lot of us do understand though that it's at least like being in your truth. And of course there no one wants to be misunderstood, but there's room for like adding in context and things. But I would say one of the things that I've always like had to combat as a person who is generally like pretty private because I like to at least know who I'm giving my energy out to. Like one of the things that has always been something that I've always worked towards and will always keep working at is like, for example, networking in terms of going out there and putting yourself out there and putting your thoughts out there and getting all of the reception back, and as we were saying earlier, like doing the adjustments where need be. So that's one thing, but you realize too that it is one of those necessary evils. I say evil because yeah, but like it's one of those necessary things that you do need in order for you to grow. And once you start looking at things through the sphere of, I need this to grow, though, I do think that there is, even if it's a slow shift, but a shift nonetheless towards, okay, but like at some point, this is going to get a lot easier.
yeah, no, I agree. And also too with the point in terms of like Sometimes you can also be your worst critic too, because
Of
sometimes you
course.
make a mistake and you feel like it is the end of the world. And nowadays, it just makes you look human. It just
Mm,
makes you look like yourself. Like, okay, you're human. That's like somebody sending out an email to their email list and then forgetting the link in there, and they already sent it to
right.
like 3,000 people. They're
Mhm.
like, oops, I thought so it's just one of those things where, you can try so much for everything to go as planned, but also we're living in a world that 9 times out of 10, that's not always how
Yep.
it plans out. But you also have to understand that it's okay for things not to be okay.
Mm,
And different things, like in terms of being online, being on social media, sometimes, you want, by the time you want there, you want it to be pretty and you want it to be fluffy. And sometimes people just want the product. Like sometimes
mhm.
people just want your services because of what you do, the pretty and the
Mhm.
perfect. Half the time they don't even look at that. That's something that's more of what we perceive in our mind of like how we want it to look. And a
Mhm.
lot of times when people want your services and they want your product, they're reaching out to you, whether you have a video on there, you have a picture, or you went a couple of days and didn't put anything. So
Mhm.
it's one of those
Mhm.
things. The same thing, it goes by, like, when people are doing, just like Star said, like in-person events and networking. That's still stepping outside someone's comfort zone. That's like taking to next, because you want to meet, you want to build that connection, because as much as social media, the internet, online, virtual meetings, all that is great, but it will never I should say, it will never
That's it.
outdo
Mhm.
being in person and having a human
Mhm.
connection with somebody
Mhm.
else, because in less than 2 minutes you can build a connection that you would never be able to do through the virtual lens of a computer. But also it helps build that genuine authority in terms of who you are, what you do, what they do, and how sometimes you can either work together, you can get new clients, you could collaborate, and it's just so much more intentional with that. And that alone, like, again, like a lot of the people we've talked to, a lot of the clients, that is a big thing in terms of, like, especially in a world where we've gotten so used to everything being online. We've gotten so used to, putting the lens on, and things of that manner, where
Making a
you
show.
get you
Yep.
get there in person and you're like you're like, do I talk? Like, what do I say? Like, all of those things. But it's important because that's how people kept human interaction years ago. And that's how we will keep that human interaction to years to come.
And very heavy on like the fact that like being online does not replace human connection, especially because you can really always feed off of a person, really understand their energy, build up on it, continue on.
Yes.
And I mean, for introverts, I know that that sounds extremely daunting, but it's like do something that actually does work for you, even if it's not going to like the biggest networking meetings. Just make sure that you at least like maybe something that's a little bit local and like go repetitively so that maybe the first time you're not really speaking to a lot of people, but eventually, especially as they keep seeing your face, somebody's going to be like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
Like
But also too,
and then
even
you can
for
start then explaining like who you are and like what your purpose is, whether it's
yeah.
just to network with someone or even like try and get a client, like no matter what, that would be the
Yeah,
best time.
exactly. And even for like introverts and things of that manner, there are also like small gatherings. Sometimes they'll do like
Yeah.
lunchtime, small intimate, and a lot of them will say like max 6 or 8 people, or they'll say max 10 people. And they do have those because they wanted to build a more intimate setting so that you have a little bit more. You don't feel as overwhelmed in a room with 50, 100 plus people.
Mhm.
Like, they have a lot of those. It's really just finding the best one for you. But just don't ever think that there's not something, because there's always
Exactly.
different events that you can do. And in that case, sometimes you can actually even look into like small networking events and gatherings, because they are intentional. They may do multiple of them throughout the year, but they're intentional because they want it small, so that, because that even comes with some people who may be like that in between. Not, there may not be an introvert, but they may not be like, a completely out
Excuse
there
me, an
either.
ambivert. Hmm.
Yes, and that goes for them too, because sometimes you can be in a room, and sometimes the more people that's there, it just gets overwhelming, where you're just like, Yeah, like aside from someone coming up to you or you not looking super nervous and maybe they won't come up to you, but it's one of those things where they're looking for that too. So nine times out of ten, you will find your people and you will find your job. So it's no such thing as is nobody out there. It's just really finding the support and the community that fits for you. Just don't think that's kind of like a covering where you're like, okay, because I'm an introvert, I can't do this. So that means I can
Yeah.
only be behind a screen. No, there's options. You just have to find the right ones.
But also the fact that by knowing the date of certain events, you actually have the time to work yourself up. And for some people, like if you need to brush up on like how to do small talk, like things like that, like there are people that would, chances are there are other people that are going to be inside of that room that are kind of like also like I don't know where to start, and that's a lot of the times is the best thing because then you could start conversations about not knowing how to like begin
Yes.
basically. I would also say one of the getting comfortable with being uncomfortable is whenever things do go wrong inside of your business and just like learning how to adjust. And I know that the first mode is usually okay, I'm going to scream or I could just like crawl into a hole at this point.
Yes.
And there's a time that maybe you may want to do that, like just for a little bit though. But it is imperative that those are the ones that you use as learning lessons where it's like, okay, so this is a possibility of something that can happen. Let's not make that happen again. And how can I go about like fixing it, and also just making this as an opportunity for the way that you can still retain whoever you're looking to capture, whether that be a client or a customer, where you can always make sure you put your best foot forward, communicate everything to the best of your abilities and the best of your comfortability in a way to just be like, hey, I know that, for example, if it's a shipment, hey, sorry, there's a delay. Like, here's what we're looking to do. Here's a coupon code if you're open to doing coupon codes. Or if it's like a client, you can still write a letter like, I apologize for X, Y, and Z, especially if it's, let's say, like something like a meeting. I apologize for X, Y, and Z. How about like $5 virtual coffee? Like a little, because you want to get a little something that's going to entice the people. So that way it shows like, yes, something may have not gone right. However, look at me trying to fix it at the same token.
Yeah, it's like it's showing that like you care on both aspects. Like you care about like okay their time, but you also want to do something a little bit. Doesn't have to be elaborate, but just something small, to them because of the fact that you're sorry. The last thing I did want to mention though is actually going back, and I just thought about it from what you had said before in terms of if everything goes right in your business for a while, when something goes wrong, or
Ugh,
not even just goes wrong, but when you have
worst
something
time for
else
a
that
lesson.
wants needs to take you outside of your comfort zone. I want to
Mm-hmm.
touch on that a little bit because obviously we talked about like obviously in the beginning stepping out your comfort zone because it's all new, even if it's things that you're used to. When it comes to like if you've been doing the same thing day in and day out and it's good, the moment when they're like, oh, I know what can really get you on the map, obviously you're going to be a little bit discomfort, but that's what's going to have you grow. When you're in a
Mm-hmm.
business and things have been going great from the beginning to the middle,
Ooh.
that's amazing, that's like you've hit it. However, it's the same thing, things could go amazing, but what do you call it? Like elevating and expanding your business is what you get to when you want to go further, when you want to build
Mm-hmm.
that legacy, when you want to. And sometimes it even can have to do where if you think everything's great, that's sometimes when you may start looking into like, okay, what else can I do
That's
so
less.
that I can, because if everything's good and things are going great, guess what? How can it be better?
Mm-hmm.
How can I reach other people? It also could have to do with, like I wonder who else in my industry maybe I can help. Like it's always something, but again, it's something new. Anytime when you're doing something new, something you're uncertain about, or something that gives you a little bit of like, I'm nervous about this because I never done it before, 100% that you are growing because you are doing something that's outside of your norm, but you're doing it for the benefit of not only you, but your business.
And I would also say too, like for me, I am that type of person that I do want to see what can go wrong initially, like so that I could prevent it. So yeah, like everything going right, like some that means that something big is wrong. And like as far as I'm concerned,
Yes.
because it's
And
kind of like as you were
and
saying,
yes.
like
No,
what
sorry, you can go.
like it's one of those things where it's like how can I grow if everything is going well? And also that just means that if I'm at the highest, the drop is going to be a lot worse, you know? So it is one of those things that like are important. And also one of the things that I wanted to really like I feel like encompasses everything that we were saying is basically to just go out there and feel like that, like, if you don't have the confidence at the moment, like, definitely work towards just understanding that you deserve to be where you are. You deserve the thought that you had in terms of like the idea that you're looking to like have prosper. You deserve to be inside of a room with people who at that moment you may feel are more knowledgeable than you, but at the same time everybody started somewhere. So like each person was a novice and felt the same way in a different kind of room. So it's just about just being repetitive and just like adjusting, because one of the things too with uncomfortability is that once you're able to master it, a lot of the times you're like, oh, it was that easy, like, like you're like, what is that? And then next thing you know, if you do have someone else who is looking at this like the issue too and just being like, oh, this was hard for me, or like I don't know how to do X, Y, and Z, you're able to help them out. But even though you understand that at one point you also understood the fact that you have to be in the position and you have to work up the courage in order to, not view it as an issue anymore.
Exactly, yeah.
Minus networking.
And
But
I
go
feel
ahead.
like no, and I feel like for me is a lot of it has to there's there throughout my entrepreneur journey, it has been a lot of different things. And that is everything from talking via like video in terms of YouTube or even going to networking events. And then after doing it quite a few times, it just becomes like natural and almost like kind of where I want to meet new people and things of that manner. But the
Yes.
one thing that I probably would say that also was one of the big things is like, especially for me, because I'm very, as you and probably most people already know, I'm a very organized person and I'm also a creature of habits. So I
Mm-hmm.
like things like that I know that okay, this is the and then maybe if I decide that I want to tweak it up or I want to change it, okay, that's great. But then when you take my bubble and you like puncture it and say, "Oh no, but step here because this is really," and I'm like, "Ooh, step where?" I'm like, "Ooh,"
Yeah.
I'm like,
Like I did not
"See,
plan the step.
here I am comfortable. Over
Mm-hmm.
there it looks kind of shaky, and I don't really
Mm-hmm.
know where that's going to take me." And it took some really 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 good mentors
Yep.
to really make me see that that's where my next step was meant to be, because it's like you can do only but so much in your comfort zone, but if you
Mm-hmm.
really want to try to elevate, getting discomfort is what you need before you get comfortable. And that changed the whole game. It changed
Mm-hmm.
everything. And it's something that again is one of those things where you almost and sometimes it's one of those things, it's easier said than done. However, with the right guidance and with the right mindset shift, you can get there. It just takes time. That's really what it is. It
Yeah.
takes time, and it takes your dedication to what your goals are.
Heavy on that because of the fact that like everything really that we spoke of is about like perspectives. And also, even for example, instead of just being like, oh my God, I have to sell something, da, 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 it's like, oh, I get to introduce somebody to like my product or my service. Or if, for example, like I know that one of the things that a lot of people don't enjoy doing is like phone calls, but it's kind of like, oh, I get to talk to people all day. You know what I mean? So, and get to like have people view my personality and see who I am, things like that. So, I would definitely like agree. And as we wrapped up Alana's conversation, one message stood out before, because like this is one of the things that, yeah, just as we wrapped up Alana's conversation, one message that stood out is that growth rarely comes from comfort. Getting uncomfortable to be comfortable means leaning into challenges, risks, and vulnerable spaces that lead to transformation. I really implore you to watch her episode because her journey truly did remind us that creativity thrives when we stretch beyond what feels safe to us and what feels comfortable. So, if you haven't yet, go watch her spotlight and replay and hear all her insights firsthand. And while you're here, just don't forget to drop a like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss a conversation from Authentic Ambitions. So until next time, keep building, keep growing, and stay inspired. Bye.
Bye.